Hi guys, Matchlick from Zapchain, and I'm here with Adrian Macneil, Engineering Manager at Coinbase.
Hi.
Thank you for being here and helping us with the Bitcoin course.
Thanks.
This is going to be good. So Bitcoin can be super complicated, and we're just trying to help everybody understand, and you probably have a lot of good insights.
Awesome. Yeah, I learned a bit.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Coinbase for anyone that doesn't know.
Right, so Coinbase is a Bitcoin company. We're probably one of the largest companies in the Bitcoin space right now. We have sort of two sides to our business. One side is the consumer side, so we've got Bitcoin wallets. You can sign up, create an account. We're sort of like a bank for Bitcoin. The other side we have is the merchant side, which is allowing people to accept Bitcoin payments and then instantly convert those back into US dollars or whatever currency they're working with. So yeah, on the merchant side, obviously, avoiding the risk of currency fluctuations there.
Right.
And on the consumer side, just making it easy for people to use Bitcoin.
Right, and then you guys have raised like over $30 million.
Yes.
Like you've been around for 2 years, you have over 40 employees. Like you really are one of the fastest growing Bitcoin companies right now.
Yeah, definitely one of the more serious Bitcoin companies. There's been a few come and go, but
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, we're going to be the best one.
Well, and you're continuing to go up and to the right. So how did you initially get into Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I heard about Bitcoin a few years ago. A friend of mine was really into it and was telling me about this Bitcoin thing, and I thought, that'll never amount to anything.
Like you're crazy.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, it sounds like a cool idea, right? But
it's probably what all the people watching us are feeling.
Yeah,
right now.
Exactly. I think everyone goes through this sort of phase, these phases where first of all you hear about Bitcoin and you're like, I don't know, it's some internet money, like probably never work out. And then eventually you're like, I don't know, I keep hearing about this thing. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe I'll buy some. And there's kind of, initially a lot of people just see it as an investment. And they're like, well, it's going up, so maybe I should buy some.
Right.
And that actually works out quite well because once you buy some, you realize how powerful this is. It's like, now I have this currency that I can send to anyone, anywhere in the world with low or no fees. So yeah, I sort of went through those stages. Mostly last year when it started getting in the news a lot, I really started looking into it more.
Right.
And that's when I was like, this thing is really powerful. I think, especially for me, I've moved around the world quite a lot and seen how difficult it is sending money, from one country to another is ridiculous. I usually resort to just taking money out of the ATM and losing like $30 plus 3% or something. So
which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like, why can I not just send money from one country to the other? It's all just numbers flowing along a wire anyway, right? Why are the banks charging us these absurd rates? And also, that's just in like developed Western countries, but there's a lot of countries where they don't even have a bank account because the banks won't let them, or some things like this.
Right, or like their local currency isn't stable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I really saw the power there, I guess, and got into it.
Just got super excited.
Yeah.
And just couldn't.
We've got to do something with this Bitcoin.
Couldn't stop researching it. Yeah. Well, and I think Bitcoin is really interesting because, like, there's no way you could say that you know everything about Bitcoin.
Right. No, I don't think anyone can. Even Satoshi, the creator, has probably never really realized that it was going to get this far or become this powerful. He might have had hopes, but
yeah. So for everyone that doesn't know, Satoshi Nakamoto is the guy that started Bitcoin.
Correct.
And he's anonymous.
Guy or group.
Guy or group or girl.
Girl.
And we have no idea who he is. And so those are the two things I think that makes Bitcoin so addicting. One, some guy named Satoshi Nakamoto or group started it. We don't know who he is.
Yeah.
When has that ever happened? Like there's not any other figures like that. And then we don't know all the things we could do with it.
Yeah.
Like it's endless.
Yeah.
And super exciting. So how did you go from like learning about Bitcoin and then getting addicted to Bitcoin and then like not leaving your house because you're just reading about Bitcoin and developing things to actually working at Coinbase?
Yeah, so I guess once I sort of got my hands on some Bitcoin and started talking nonstop about it to my friends, I decided that I should probably get into this, and I was quite keen to start my own company. But at the same time, I was looking at moving to the States earlier this year, and sort of realized like you can start. There's two ways to go. You can start a company, or you can get involved with a company that's already doing things, meet a whole bunch of great people, and build something that's bigger than yourself. So earlier this year I just said, all right, I need to get into this Bitcoin thing. So I was applied to Coinbase and went through the interview process and ended up here. So it was really quite smooth, I think. Yeah.
And you feel like it was the right decision?
Yeah, definitely. I'm still here.
What would you have started if you hadn't joined Coinbase?
I mean, I guess this is the exciting thing about Bitcoin, is there are a lot of different aspects of it that haven't been developed or explored yet. Some of them are definitely easier to start than others. So there's some things like, you could say ATMs, right? We could plaster the world in Bitcoin ATMs. But being the person who successfully starts it is probably going to be someone who's got contacts in the manufacturing industry, or possibly contacts with a large chain of department stores or something, where you can sort of bootstrap this process and get your ATMs everywhere. There's a lot of other areas in the sort of Bitcoin API space that I was interested in, that I ended up working on here anyway. So
what are you working on? Like, what have you been working on since?
So I mean, we have a lot of just large-scale projects underway at any point in time. Most recently, we just spent the last few months non-stop pretty much working on our Europe launch. So that involved, dealing with, obviously, our business development folk had to go and talk to a bunch of banks in Europe and find a bank that was willing to work with us. There was a lot of work, on compliance to make sure that bank was happy with the processes we have in place. Once it got passed over to engineering, we had to work with, okay, how are we going to actually communicate with this bank? How are we going to know when someone transfers euros into Coinbase? So we had to build out all those processes, and when someone transfers money out of Coinbase, how do we then initiate that transaction? And then, most recently thinking about how can we launch Coinbase in different languages? Who is doing the translation? How do we deal with, formatting numbers and currencies and stuff in all of these languages? So the Europe launch was really, really interesting on a lot of fronts.
So how did you solve the languages problem?
So we're still working that out. We're currently looking at a combination of crowdsourcing, especially for less common languages, because you've got a platform here that is available to the entire world, and it would be nice to launch in 100 languages, right? But we can't possibly employ people full time to maintain those. So I think for the top worldwide languages, we will end up with full-time employees who handle with our support and our relationships in those countries, and also possibly maintaining our translations for Coinbase. In the sort of second tier of languages that are spoke, throughout the rest of the world, we'll just use a community platform where people who are interested can help maintain those.
What was the hardest part about preparing for Coinbase's European launch?
Just testing everything, I would say. It's really difficult when you're working with money to make sure that you're not losing a cent anywhere.
Right.
It's one thing building these kind of social services where, like, if someone posts a photo and it disappears the next day, it's like they might be a little bit upset, but like their friends just missed out on a chance to like their photo or something.
Right.
If someone sends us some money and we lose it, there's
then
like
they'll kill you.
That's not a good day for anyone.
Right.
So thoroughly testing every step of the way, making sure that and we had a beta program with a bunch of family and friends who we trusted not to leak our impending launch. Sending money into the system, sending money out of the system, buying and selling Bitcoin, and all of that. So that was probably the largest part of the whole process, was making sure that the system was bulletproof, so that when we launched, we could go out there and say, hey, Coinbase is available. And we honestly, on the first day, had no complaints or bugs in the system. So I think that was a pretty impressive milestone for us.
How was the response?
It was pretty good. We had a sort of a slow first day initially. I think especially we launched with a lot of US press, which was great for us, but we're sort of on the verge of doing a tour of European press and actually getting our name out there, because while a lot of people in the Bitcoin space in the US have heard of Coinbase, that's not necessarily the case internationally. So I think it's going to be like a process that will just slow and steady kind of win our way into Europe.
I feel like You're almost like Spotify, kind of, except like reverse.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Spotify
exactly.
came
You're
into the
successful
United
in one. Yeah, you're successful in one, particular country or region, and that can mean that you have a great product, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that the day you launch, you're going to be hugely successful in a new country.
Yeah, but then if you do a good job, with Spotify, nobody in the United States a couple years ago used Spotify or knew about it. But Spotify was still like a really big company in other countries. And then they came in here, they made a big deal, and then, people, I use Spotify every day now.
Yeah,
so hopefully that's probably...
Hopefully we'll be as big as Spotify.
Yeah. That's what I think will happen. Yeah. So what else have you been working on at Coinbase?
So I guess I mentioned that I was really interested in the Bitcoin API space. I think people might be able to relate to companies like Stripe coming in. So for example, accepting credit cards used to be really difficult.
Right.
And they've got companies like PayPal that let you accept credit cards, but their API was terrible. It was like poorly documented, hard to use. And then companies like Stripe come in and just say, hey, like here's this super simple API. Just click here, sign up. Cool. Here's a example API key you can work with.
Right. And so for everyone watching, an API, what would be a really simple explanation of an API?
So the best explanation for API is it's a website for computers to talk to. I don't know. So for example, you go to a web page and you see some information, and you can read it obviously, and it's nicely laid out and there's pictures and stuff. An API is just that, except it's listed in a format that's easy for a computer to understand. So I guess it's like the spreadsheet equivalent. Everything's just like, here's an amount, here's how much I want to charge someone, here's like that person's email address, in a format that's easy for computers to understand.
Like it's almost like Legos a little bit.
Yeah. It's the building blocks. It's like, here's a way to build on top of our application. So most companies these days, I guess, have an API which allows other people to build on top of that to make cool applications that we haven't even thought of.
Right. So I guess like an example most people could probably relate to where they've interacted with someone integrated in an API would be like if you log into, a website and you're logging in with Facebook,
right?
That website actually used Facebook's API to enable that.
Right. Yeah. So that website is talking to Facebook over their API. So they're just communicating with Facebook and saying, "Hey, I want this person to log in," and then you do your password, and then Facebook sends a message back saying, "Yes, that person was successful. It's really them."
Right. And so now I think also most people probably don't realize this, and maybe when you say it, it sounds confusing because they don't understand APIs in the first place. But you can actually develop like products or technology with Bitcoin's API.
Yeah, I mean, so you can use. There's a couple aspects there, I guess. There's the Coinbase API, which specifically, Coinbase, you can create a wallet, you can create an account, you can store some Bitcoin in it, you can send and receive that Bitcoin, you can buy and sell more Bitcoin. So Coinbase has an API which lets you build on top of that. So for example, our Android app uses that API. So when you log into the Android app and then you say, I want to buy 2 Bitcoin, it sends a message to Coinbase and says, hey, buy 2 Bitcoin on behalf of that person. But it's not just open to us, right? Anybody out there can build on top of Coinbase's API and say, hey, log in with your Coinbase account. Instead of log in with Facebook, it's log in with your Coinbase account.
Right.
And, maybe this website lets you do automatic trading or something. So if the price hits X, do a buy for me. Or if the price hits Y, then sell it.
Right.
And they could build that with our API rather than you having to click around our website.
Well, and without requiring you to build all these things.
Right, exactly, yeah.